I'm Aaron Dyer, and I wanted to talk a little bit about my mother. The painting you were just looking at was something that they bought, and I don't remember where they bought it, but it was in their house in El Paso. So this painting is a good 60 years ago. And after my dad passed, I wanted to have that if nobody else wanted it. I was very close to my mother. I felt very tenderly toward her. I spent time with her on a day-to-day basis well into my 20s. My mom had found us a piano teacher when we moved to Dallas, and she introduced me to Dr. Harris Crone, who taught at SMU, and they offered me a partial scholarship. And so with that, some financial assistance from my parents, and with some part-time jobs, I was able to go to SMU for my undergraduate years. And so I lived at home. I didn't live on campus. So I was with my mom on a day-to-day basis for quite a long time as a result of that. She married at age 17. And so with the responsibilities of children, there was also still the matter of growing up. We went to the First Baptist Church, El Paso, which is this big church in downtown, right in downtown El Paso. And she was the church organist there. I enjoyed standing at the top of this little flight of stairs that went down into the church auditorium where the front pews are, and there was so she could go down there and be right to the organ. That to me was the front of the church. I didn't know anything about the foyer of the church. It seemed strange to me that the pews were on the front, and yet that wasn't the front of the church. The front of the church was the door out on Montana Street. Never got that. And I was rarely ever there. I wanted to stand on that flight of steps and hand out the order of service to people that went by. There was some steps that came by on the other side of that little lobby from the Sunday school area. And then over here to the right was the choir room, and they would be practicing till the last minute and then come out there, and my mom would come by in her choir robe and down the steps. And I just loved being near my mom. And so on the first row or two on that side where the organ is, there were the deaf people there, and then standing in front of them against that wall was the sign language interpreter, and that person would do the sign language interpretation for the whole service. And my dad would sit on the second seat in on like the third row and leave the aisle seat for my mom when she would come there during the sermon. And I would sit next to my dad, or Amy or Ann would sit next to my dad. I just loved that my mom played the organ. She sang hymns while she played the organ, which I found to be miraculous. I can't sing while I play. Playing the piano isn't difficult for me, but I just can't really sing while I play, not very easily. And she just did it. She seemed to do it so easily. She had a beautiful voice. It was a very sweet texture to it. And it was had a beautiful elastic texture to it. And I know that all four of us could pick her voice out of a full choir when they were singing. I know I could, and it was just I enjoyed listening to her voice so much if she would sing a solo or sing in a trio or quartet or in the full choir. Her musicality was a huge influence on all of us. We were in this little cracker box house, and at night, after they would put us to bed, I was 5 years old, I guess, she and my dad would start playing music. He would pull out his violin, she would sit down at this little spinet piano we had in the house and start playing. And I remember one instance of that when the song was just so beautiful. I just came out of my bedroom just sobbing because it was just so beautiful, and walking down the hall, and I remember them laughing and then stopping and, picking me up and putting me back in bed. I remember it because it was probably my first direct experience of music as language. And it's also probably why I consider Stardust the greatest popular song ever written. She was in her late 20s when I knew her as a person, so she was quite young. And then when we moved to Dallas, I started to get to know her in different ways. There was an instance or two, more than one instance. My bedroom was closest to the kitchen, and I would hear my parents talking at the kitchen table, and sometimes my mom was in despair or depressed or something, feeling that she just battling over a sense of her self-worth. And my dad was also quite young, and so he was reassuring her the best he could. And this just, again, I felt a sense of worry for her during that time. I just wanted the best for her, and any time she was sad, it was really very heartbreaking for me. Fast forward many years, my dad had been diagnosed terminally, and I would go down to Waco where they had their bed and breakfast and would visit them on Fridays and bring my laptop and work then when I could. And it was in one of these times that I decided that I wanted to give a piano recital for my dad, because I just felt like they were both so hugely supportive of us as musicians, and I wanted him to hear me play once more, so I did. And at the end of that recital, I didn't wait long to play an encore. I just wanted to continue playing. And the only thing that I really could play that I had in hand that I didn't feel like I'd be making a complete fool of myself, that wasn't on the program, was Clair de Lune. Just a few weeks later, he passed on, and at his memorial service, my mom wanted that played at the memorial service, and so I did. Several years later, I was practicing some Chopin nocturnes, and I had kind of been thinking about music for my mom. And one day I was practicing some Chopin nocturnes, and I got to one in B major, and was suddenly struck. This is it. This is the piece that speaks my relationship to my mom.